Dash was created using Electron and Vue. Electron is a framework for creating desktop applications that work on Mac, Windows, and PC. You can find out more information at electronjs.org. And Vue is a JavaScript front-end framework, so it's creating all of the HTML and CSS that the users are seeing on the front end. And you can find out more about Vue.js at vuejs.org. And you can make some minor edits to the application without understanding these, but for major edits, it would be good to have a good understanding of both Vue and Electron. Important files and folders for the application include the package.json file. So that file has all of the dependencies for the application as well as the build scripts. The app.vue file has defined the application, basically. The source/assets folder contains a lot of the important JavaScript for the application, things like processing the text files that are added, creating the graphs, and it also has a file defining the database structure. The router.js file defines all the different views. So when you're clicking around on the tabs, that's going through the router.js to navigate around the application. And the source/views folder has the view components for all of the different views. So as an example, I'm going to explain a little bit about how the graphs part of the application works. So the overall structure of the application is again defined in the app.vue file, and I'll go through this just using these pictures and then again in the code base itself. So there are three major components of the application. There is the drawer component on the left side, which allows the user to navigate. There is the app bar component on the top of the application, and right now that is just being used for this button that lets the user open and close the drawer component. And the main view here, when the user is navigating around the app, it's mainly changing the content of this view. When the user clicks on one of these tabs, for example, the graphs tab, that tells the router.js file to navigate to the /graphs location. And at that location or view, we have the graphs component. So the graphs component includes this part of the application. So there's some filters. We can choose between products and providers, and this button here as well. The graphs component has a component within it called the product graph, which is actually going to display all of the graphs that are created. And within the product graph component, we are importing some of the important JavaScript files. So we are using functions from the products.js file and providers.js file to create the different graphs. Look at this example in the actual code base. So the application is defined in the app.vue file, and we can see that there's three components to the application. So there's the app bar on top, there's the drawer on the side, and the core view. So we can see that the file for the drawer is at this location, so we can navigate there. And then we can see that all of the tabs are defined in the data for the drawer. So we have our graphs tab, our tables tab, etc. When we click on these tabs, so for example, the graphs tab, that's going to take us to the slash graphs location. And by going to the router.js file, we can see what that's actually going to do for the application. So in the router.js file, we're defining all of the paths. And if we look at the slash graphs path, we can see the application will open the slash view slash dashboard slash graphs component. So let's take a look at that. So this is the graphs component, and if we scroll up here, we can see this contains the product graph component. So this is all the graphs we're seeing, including the title for the graph and the SVGs or images that are created as part of the graphs. We also have the filters and buttons here that switch between the products and providers view. So if you look through that, you can find that code here. The product graph component is coming from this file here. So we can take a look at that as well. And this has, if we look through here, we can see these are all the HTML components of the graph. So there's some buttons, some icons, and the main thing here to see is that we are importing these important functions from these JavaScript files. So here we're importing a function to create a graph or swarm of transfusion data from the products.js file. So let's take a look at that. And we can see that the main function in this file is the add swarm function. So this is going to take in the transfusion data from the database, information about the product type, and it's going to be responsible for creating all the graphs. So the files that I just went through are the main files to think about if you would like to make updates to the application.